to us today, and there are so many. We are the kind of people who go, interact with people, and we give life because we are life-giving spirits. God has given us life, and so we share that life. And we go everywhere. We are successful in everything that we do because we partner with God. We are blessed people. God has removed limits from our minds, so we see every opportunity that comes our way. And whatever we touch is blessed because God has blessed us. So we happen everywhere. We are solutions to millions of people. That's why God has placed us here, you and I. And that's the reason why today is such a successful day even before it begins. Because the Lord has given us our mouth and our minds. Our mouth, we speak and chart our future. With our brains, our mind, we create and shape it. And then we speak it out. We were created in His image and in His likeness. Meaning we were created to look and operate like God. All right? So we are blessed creatures here on earth. And that's the reason why, we cannot afford to look down on ourselves. We cannot afford. We are blessed beings. All right? Those are my daily meditations in the Lord. What He has done for me and what He has done for us. We speak, we believe. And with the spirit of faith, we believe and therefore we speak. Now, yesterday was one of those days, but it's very unfortunate because now the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights reports that at least 10 people were shot dead and during the Saba protests in various parts of the country, including Kitengela, Kamukunji, Rongai, Kiserian, and Embu. The commission further reported that 29 people were injured, 2 were abducted, and 37 were arrested during the day-long protests across the 17 counties. Several areas in the capital of Nairobi reported gunshots fired sporadically by masked and uniformed plainclothes officers.
Younger brother pale wametulia. Wamempiga risasi 2, moja hapa na nyingine kwa mgongo. Na alikuwa ameinua mikono. Hakuwa anafanya kitu, hakuwa anaharibu mali ya mtu. Na alikuwa amepiga magoti akiinua mkono. Wametulia brother yetu. Pea hicho. Na ule brother wangu mdogo.
Mwenye mkufa mtoto wangu first born. Alikuwa na asubuhi sijui kuliendaje, nimeitiwa amekufa kwa iko mtoto wangu ni maiti. Jana asubuhi akiniambia anaenda kazi atarudi, nikamwambia urudi mapema uende kwa nyumba. Pata simu hospitali amekufa. Sina la kusema. Jangu tumetoka tuko nyumba kwa kununua credit kwa barabara na akashutiwa akakufa.
Sasa ule akumbele yangu naona ameanguka chini, ndio ule amepigwa risasi kwa kifua. Ameanguka chini. Sasa na mimi nasikia mkono ina vibrate. Kuangalia ni kama damu inamwagika mingi sana.
It's a very unfortunate situation, hearing the cries of people and seeing the lifeless body of their brother or their loved ones. It's an unfortunate situation that we need to get a grip of. The leadership of this country cannot continue being chest thumping as though nothing is happening. It is happening, and the unfortunate thing is that every time people go to the streets, more than 10 people lose their lives. These are lives too many to be lost. So there needs, I agree with Raila Odinga, we need to come to a place whereby we have a conversation. Otherwise, a country cannot be led like this. Now, anti-riot police brazed a morning breeze to mount roadblocks on major routes into the Nairobi Central Business District for major searches ahead of planned Saba celebrations, even as the government had insisted that July 7 will be a normal working day. Roadblocks stopped both private and public service vehicles from accessing the city center. This was in fear that those planning protests would disguise and surprise security agencies in the city center. Roadblocks were mounted on Waiyaki Way, Kenyatta Avenue, Jogoo Road, Mombasa Road, Thika Road, Kiambu Road, Uhuru Highway, Valley Road, and other major feeder roads.
Nasafiri kutoka Kisumu naenda Nairobi, Ruaraka, Naivas. Nilifika hapa mwendo wa saa 11 asubuhi. Tukageuzwa hapa Kangemi kwa bridge. Tukarudishwa, sasa tumekuwa stranded hapa kuanzia asubuhi. Tulikuwa na wamama wengi wamehangaika na watoto wako tu ndani ya mabasi. Jinsi ya kusafiri imekuwa ngumu. Bodaboda inachukua pesa mingi. Wengi wametoka nyumbani hawana chochote. Kwa hivyo imetubidi tukae tu hapa.
Kutoka Kitale saa 2 tukafika hapa saa 7. Tangu 7 za usiku mpaka saa hizi tumekaa hapo na watoto na abiria, njaa inawauma, chakula hakuna, duka hakuna, tunahangaika kabisa, chakula hakuna. Hizi abiria walisema wanachelewa kazi, tena ilifaa aende arudi, hawezi rudi. Sasa amewaste time mingi sana. Sasa ameumia parefu sana. Ni hivyo tu.
Mtu wa bodaboda hii Kangemi, hakuna kazi. Watu wenye tulikuwa wafaa tubebe kutoka asubuhi mpaka jioni, hakuna mwenye ameenda kazi. Hii maisha ya Kasongo hii, inatuumiza by the way sana. Unaona kama watu kiangalia kila mtu amekaa kwa nyumba. Hii tia gasi inatuumiza.
Biashara leo tuseme kwa watu wa motorbike tunaweza sema wenye waliamuka mapema kidogo. Tunaona biashara yao maybe imekuwa poa kidogo. Juu wenyewe kazi ilikuwa hatuwezi sema hiyo kazi ilikuwa. Nayo tunaweza sema wenyewe watu hizi magari wameumia sana. So tunasema hata kama mwenye anaweza patikana mwenye angali hajabebwa, kama unaweza mpata usimuumize sana kwa kibei. Jaribu tu kumtengenezea bei at least pia yeye aweze kusaidika.
Mkaji wa Nairobi, kweli kama siku ya leo ni kama serikali wamejipanga. Tumesuiliwa kuingia katikati ya town vile ilikuwa wakati ule. Kwa sasa kivyangu mimi ningeomba tu vijana wote na watoto wangu wote kujipanga kwetu ni vijana wachukue ID, tugojee kama nikotoa mtu toe wakati wa kura. Lakini kiangalia kuingia katikati ya town inaleta shida sana because hakuna mtu yote ameruhusiwa kuingia katikati ya town. So mahali popote wote huko, jiandaa, chukua kura yako, ngojea wakati ya kura, piga kura kwa njia mzuri. Ni ile tu wameshuka kwamba watu bodaboda wakiingia ndani wanaingia na watu wale wanaenda kufanya fujo, lakini watu bodaboda si watu wa kufanya fujo.
Mimi nabebea pale Moyo Avenue, pa Galitos. So leo tumeamkia kazi kama kawaida. Unajua sisi watu wa bodaboda tunakuanga na usafiri mingi. Tunachukua raia tukipeleka ndani ndio tupate likizo letu la kila siku. Siku ya leo tumeamuka na tukakuta barabara zote zimefungwa, ambapo kwa nchi yetu mali inaelekea si mali pazuri. Tunataka tuambie rais wetu, tulikuchagua tukiwa vijana. Na sisi wale tulikuchagua ndio unatufanyia hivi. Ulisema bottom up. Kasema mtu ya bodaboda atoke chini aende juu. Leo hii umefungia mtu wa bodaboda. Kitu ile tunakuambia, tunakungoja 2027.
So just in case you are out of the country and you came back into the country in the evening, that's how things looked like. In fact, business owners took it upon themselves to guard and protect their property ahead of the protests following the aftermath of the June 25th. Businesses along OTC and parts of Nairobi CBD were heavily guarded by what you can call young men who are armed, who said they were not ready to count losses again. Police officers' presence was spotted as they worked together with the young men to keep goons and looters off their property.
Kuonya magoons ya kwamba hatutaki mambo ya kuja kuharibu mali ya mtu.
Wale magoons wanatumwa kutoka kule juu, wanakuja mbio kutuvamia, so ni self defense.
Sasa hii tunaangalia area Udhuru, Market na area OTC hivyo, na tuko na hizo maribbons. Ukienda hivyo tukipata na msemo mwingine hapo na red na jabada, tuko shughuli pamoja na wewe.
Sasa hii mahali imefikia hatuaminiani. Ndio hata hao mapolisi wengine ndio wanaangalia kazi zetu zikiharibiwa. So sisi wenyewe najiamini mimi mwenyewe na mwanabiashara mwenzangu, na pia yeye nikiona ni kama ananitega pia yeye simuamini.
Leo imebidi tukuje tu guard biashara zetu because what we saw last Watu tulienda hasara juu kuna watu wameandikwa, kuna watu wako na mashops hapa hivi, watu walienda hasara, watu walinyang'anywa, it was bad. So leo imebidi tufike tugadonye hizi bizi zetu juu hapa ndio tunatoa chakula, watoto wanasoma. So tukikosa kufika tugad biashara zetu, naona sisi ndio tunaumia na wengine tuko na.
Well, I can see that Kennedy Jumba Asirigwa has already joined us. Kennedy is he's what you can call a very early riser. He's already joined us. I can see Cynthia and Angela. She says, good morning, another day to pick up the pieces of yesterday. Let me tell you a secret. Now, Cynthia was not able to go home yesterday. As in the situation where she comes from, she felt uncomfortable to go home. So munaweza muambia pole kidogo, hata munaweza mnunulia chai. And then we have Matthew Otieno. Matthew Otieno says, a very sad state of the nation. I completely agree with you, Matthew. Very sad state. And actually it was a cat and mouse game in Machakos between police officers and protesters, with running battles recorded for the better part of the day. Businesses remained shut, with transport paralyzed as security operations were beefed up. Protesters lit bonfires, with some arrested and taken to the police station.
Naendelea huku Machakos, unaona tu ni hii rapsha yenye walikuwa wameamua mambo ya sabasaba, maandamano na ni kukimbizana hapa na pale na polisi. Shida ni kuwa wanajenzi wameamua Ruto wanafaa kuenda na ni one term. Na shida kubwa ni hii kuwao kwa wananchi, wanapigwa marisasi na polisi. Hiyo ndio kitu inauma watu.
Mbona watumia life bullet unaua raia? We are the future. Na serikali inatuua.
Tunataka tukae chini. Tushike kadi ya kura. Tuchukue vitambulisho. Tusiseme tu one time na sisi wenyewe hatuna ID, hatuna kadi ya kura. Je, sisi wenyewe tutakaa aje? Tunaanza sasa hivi. Kwa hii mambo ya kurushana mawe, kuenda kupomoa nyumba duka za wenyewe. Imagine hata what you do feel even is your mother. Unaenda kurepo mama. Inakusaidia na nini? Ni sisi chenzi wenyewe tukae chini. To confess our mind. Tuchukue ID, tuchukue kadi ya kura. Kufika 2027 tutaanza kutembea, mwenye utachukua kadi ya kura, alafu hapa unasema one term na una kura. What will you do?
Kile inaendelea. Naona vijana wanafunga barabara. Magari kule zinafungiwa. Watu wanatolewa tax. Ambapo mimi ningetaka kusema vijana, hiyo si maandamano. Hii tunafanya wizi. Tunafanya wizi. Na hii kitu ambao unasikia askari akikushika, wewe ndio unafanya askari anakulazimisha kukushika. Wewe ndio unafanya askari anakutafuta. Wewe ndio unafanya askari anakuwatanu kwa kupiga matia gas kila mahali. Mbona tuharibu kazi? Mbona tuharibu tauni yetu leo? Tuchafue tauni kwa nini? Mayut, hakuna kitu tunafanya na tutapata kile tunahitaji. Kile iko ni kufuata masharti na kufanya tupatie kiongozi wetu nafasi aongoze taifa na sisi wenyewe tumsupport kama Wakenya.
You know, the strangest thing is that during this protest, this period, I've seen protests happening in places that they literally never used to happen, and they become so lethal, so lethal. In fact, I believe we truly need to have a conversation as a nation to see how we can bring this to an end. That's what former Prime Minister Raila Odinga said, that circumstances had forced him not to join protesters at Kamkunji to mark the historic Sabasaba Day. Raila said there were roadblocks all over town that it made it difficult for protesters to access Kamkunji grounds. He was set to make an appearance at Kamkunji grounds at around 3 p.m. in commemoration of the anniversary of the historic Sabasaba protests.
In commemorating this very important day. Unfortunately, as you all know, circumstances, today the roadblocks all over town, which has made it difficult for people to move to Kamkunji. In the circumstances, I've decided therefore to talk to the media here at Serena. 35 years later, the country is grappling with a new wave of unrest and political activism. The question we have to ask ourselves is, where do we go from here? Do we embrace chaos or a coming together of minds and country? As a living architect of the events leading to the Sabasaba, I choose a coming together of minds and country in the interest of the country. I long fought for its progress, stability and prosperity. The most important struggle taking shape in our country today is the struggle for good governance, economic opportunity and equality, on enhancing accountability, transparency and improving the police to people relationship. Your rogue police force that shoots people with impunity. And this is a force that we inherited from the colonialists. It has not been reformed to become a people's defender, a people's servant. I propose that the conclave I envisage comes up with better and sustainable ways for addressing transparency, accountability, and impunity, especially with regard to corruption, and ensuring that leaders are held accountable for their actions. Such a national conclave must have clear terms of reference and be populated and helmed by the most serious and sober minds in our nation. The proceeds of the national dialogue be subjected to a referendum.
One of the other things he had said is that we need to talk. We need to form a forum where that conversation can take place, because we cannot continue like this. We cannot have this year, and then 2026, again, June 25th, we have the same thing, and then there's Sabasaba in June, next year, 2026, and then another one in 2027. We cannot continue like this. And by the way, I was listening to the conversation that is going on is these protests are going to morph. If you look at X, they're saying that the protests are going to morph, and they will morph in this way. Now, they will take people to MPs' homes. It will be a question of occupy your MP's home, whereby you go to your MP and that's where you eat. In the sense that they're saying since they implemented the finance bill and they're not caring about what people are going through, now they will bear the burden of the people. You'll have 1,000 people going to a member of parliament's home, and from there they will demand to be fed food. So that's the direction the protests are going to morph. At least that's what X says. Now, Kisumu city remained calm, even as tension and Sabasaba protests intensified in other parts of the country. However, the city, which has long been a stronghold of Raila Odinga, is now experiencing divided opinion regarding the approval of the broad-based government. A section of residents, including a member of the business community, has reiterated the opposition to demonstrations in the country, terming them harmful to both businesses and the right to life. On the other hand, a section supporting the demonstration argues that the government has blatantly failed to listen to Kenyans.
Kwamba tusidanganyane, maisha ni ngumu. Kwanzia Ruto kushika ushukani, maisha yamekuwa ngumu, yenye mwananchi wa kawaida apate vile anaishi. Tangu tuingie broad base, mimi kama Peter kuna kitu na benefit, ama hata watoto wangu. Shule zinaanguka, hospitali hakuna madawa, maisha bei ya unga imepanda juu. So tangu jenzi waanze kupigana, at least tunaona at least some things inaanza kufanya wake out. Like for example, ile pesa mapolisi walikuwa nasanya kwa mabana na maduka, wamestop tangu waue Alfred Ojuang. We support the Gen Z cause. Wakitusimamishia candidate tutapeleka. Hakuna story ya Munyoro, hakuna story ya Ruto, waende tu nyumbani polepole.
Maandamano yaendelee. Kwa sababu unajua ile maandamano ya kwanza ya financial bill ilitusaidia sana. Kwa sababu unajua kama ingepitishwa, si wenyewe hata wazazi wetu saizi vile tunasimama saizi hawangeweza ya maisha. Na sasa kwa si hapa Kisumu, nasema wengi wetu hapa pengine wanapenda amani, lakini wanaogopa ile harakati ya kupigwa risasi. Lakini kama kuna ile polisi hawayapo, polisi wako tu pale wana protect ama wana protect properties, utaona tu kama maandamano yanaendelea. Na hii issue ya abduction pia ndio watu wengine kama majenzi wanaogopa.
Meanwhile, Mombasa experienced heightened security with most businesses remaining closed due to fears of looting and property destruction. Amid anticipated protests, a heavy police presence had patrolled the major streets of the central business district. However, no demonstrations took place in the port city. Authorities had earlier declined a protest notification submitted by activists, citing concerns that the demonstration could be infiltrated by criminals. Mohammed Ali, chairman of the Makinon Market, noted that even the threat of protests scares away customers, creating tension that severely affects small-scale traders. He urged for peace to enable businesses to thrive. If the protests are prolonged, he noted, it would lead to a scarcity of vegetables that are mainly sourced from the countryside.
Kukiwa hali kama hii, tuwasema kukiwa hali kama hii, makastoma wanakuwa chini sana, kulingana kuwa na hofu ya watu kuja kununua, kufanya biashara. Kwa hivyo hali kama hii inaika tension, makastoma hatuna.
Changes always doesn't come so easy. Kitu kimoja, wenye kufanya maandamano ama wanaoshangilia maandamano wanaangalia hii picture kwa karibu, lakini hawaangalii effect ambayo itakao kuleta kwa economy ya nchi.
Ikiwa kutakuwa na tension tangu jana kwamba Jumatatu 7/7 kuna maandamano, huwa mali nyingi zinatoka bara zinakuwa kidogo na zilizoko hapa zinapanda bei kulingana hiyo sokoni kama Kongoya mali hazikuingia. Kwa hivyo pia kama wafanyabiashara sisi tunaathirika na bei na wanunuzi pia wanaathirika na bei.
We depend on investors. If tutaendelea kwa hali hii, hata amani ikija kipatikana baadaye, it will take a long period of time to recover.
Kwa kweli siku ya leo kulingana na maandamano ambayo yameweza kupangwa, imeweza kuaffect sisi wana biashara, hasa madereva wa tuktuk, kwa sababu tunategemea watu wanapokuja katika biashara zao na angalau na sisi tunawabeba tukiwapeleka makazini. Kwa basi siku ya leo tujafanya kazi kwa sababu hakuna mtu ambaye ameweza kutoka kwa nyumba akaenda katika biashara. So kwa kweli sisi kama watu wa tuktuk tumeweza kuwa affected, na at the end of the day mwenyewe anataka pesa yake ya tuktuk, mimi nataka kulisha familia, mwenye kodi pia anataka pesa zake. Na kwa kweli hali ikiendelea namna hii, sisi kama wanabiashara wa jua kali tunaumia sana.
Escorted hapa kwa IPO offices by the police, lakini wanasema tusiandamane kwa sababu kuna wauni. Kama mnajua kuna wauni, kwa nini msiende kushika hao wauni? Kwa nini mkuje kwetu sisi vijana ambao tuko hatuna silaha? You know the goons are there, you know the planners. Go for them. Nenda ushika hao vijana ambao wanaleta vurugu. Kama unajua nani amepanga wahuni, endea huyo mwenye amepanga wahuni. Mshike yeye akuonyeshe ni mbinu gani ametumia na ni vijana gani amelipa kuleta vurugu. Lakini usikuje kwetu ambao sisi tuko peaceful, sisi ambao tunakuja kuandamana kwa amani, unatuambia ati msiandamane kwa sababu kuna wauni. Kazi yenu polisi ni gani? Kama sisi mtatuambia tusiandamane kuna wauni, nyinyi mnapokea mshahara wa nini? You should protect us.
You know, I don't remember a time that Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has had opportunities to have conversations and talks and address the media like he's done during this period. He hailed Kenya's youth, calling them the vanguard of the third liberation, marking the 35th anniversary of the historic Sabasaba movement with a call for peaceful resistance and accountability. In a reflective message shared on X, Musyoka drew parallels between the country's current wave of youth-led protests and the 1990s struggle for multi-party democracy, during which reformists such as Kenneth Matiba, Charles Rubia, Mati Shikuku braved the police brutality and detention to push for political freedoms.
Vijana bado wanasema one term. Na sio kwa sababu wanasema tu ili kujifurahisha, lakini vile hali ilivyo katika nchi yetu. Ni wazi kwamba wajamaa wameshindwa na kudhibiti nchi, kudhibiti uchumi, kutafutia vijana nafasi za kazi, na ndio tunasema kwamba heri wao watushukuru kwamba tunasema one term. Kwa sababu Kenya wanaona hata kuvumilia hiyo term moja ishe inamaanisha 2027. Wengi wao wanaona vile hali ilivyo ngumu ya maisha, hao jamaa inawapasa kusema hata kung'atuka mapema. Hata hivyo, leo hii nimewahi pia pamoja na wenzangu mawakili kutetea vile vijana, wale vijana ambao walishikwa. Kuna Wanjiru Thiga na kijana huyu Kinyanjui Peter ambao walikamatwa, wakapelekwa mahakamani Kiambu na Ruiru, wakapatiwa hata kutolewa na cash bail, lakini wakaja wakashikwa tena kwa njia yenye madharau makubwa kabisa na kushtakiwa chini ya sheria ambayo inahusika na international terrorism. Na hali tunajua ni watoto, hawana nia ya kuhusika, hawana network ya mambo kama wagaidi wa kimataifa. Kwa hivyo tumewahi kusema leo hawatachukua, they will not take the plea, lakini kesho zote tutakuwa mahakamani tena kahawa kuhakikisha kwamba hawa vijana wanapata haki chini ya sheria na chini ya katiba ambayo tuliwachiwa na mzee amelala, mzee Kibaki, 2010 constitution. Kwa hivyo tuzidi kushikamana na tusiwe na hofu yoyote, tujue kuna ulinzi wa kutosha wa kikatiba. Kwa hivyo Bwana Ruto na wenzake wajiandae kuwa wao itakuwa one term.
At Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka. By the way, he had said he was going to rename his party. Let's see what happens. Now, meanwhile, Nairobi woman representative Esther Pasari has announced that she will pause the pre-publication process of a controversial protest bill, the Public Order Amendment Bill 2025. Taking to social media, the legislator said that the halt will pave way for national dialogue and public engagement on the bill. Her move comes as a heed to a call by the National Council of Churches of Kenya, NCCK, to withdraw the bill ahead of the planned protest. The bill seeks to prohibit public gatherings from Parliament and other protected areas, as well as demarcating areas of assembly and protest zones to prevent the destruction of property. Her proposal has been opposed by a number of parliamentarians and politicians who cite the violation of constitutional rights, with a few supporting it. Well, the other person who's now calling for dialogue is the Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, who's urging Kenyans to embrace dialogue and a peaceful means to resolve grievances. Kindiki warned that violence and incitement will only derail the nation's progress. Speaking during an economic empowerment forum for women groups and SACCOs at Mukongoni grounds in Lamu West, the DP stressed that no country can prosper amid chaos and destruction. Kindiki emphasized that every Kenyan has a right to express themselves and raise concerns, but they should do it peacefully.
Kuna watu wengine ambao wanapanga vurugu, sijui maandamano na vita. Na mimi nataka niseme nchi yetu ya Kenya na warai nchi yetu ya Kenya, wananchi zote na viongozi, lazima tutafute njia za kutatua shida zetu za kitaifa kwa njia ya mazungumzo na njia ya amani. Haitawezekana kujenga nchi yetu kupitia vita na vurugu na kuhatarisha amani na umoja na usalama wa kitaifa. I plead with you, fellow countrymen, we cannot build this country through chaos, through incitement, and through violence. We must learn to resolve our national problems through consultations, discussions, and through peaceful means. Na wale wananchi ambao wako na maoni tofauti, wako na uhuru wa kutoa maoni tofauti, bora wafanye hivyo kwa njia ya amani. Mwananchi ambaye anatofautiana na serikali ako na uhuru ya kikatiba kutofautiana na serikali, bora afanye hivyo kwa njia ya amani. Mimi najua mnakubaliana na mimi wenzangu, hakuna kitu cha dhamana katika taifa kuliko usalama na amani. There is nothing more precious than peace and stability. Kwa hivyo wale wenzetu ambao wanapanga vita na vurugu wajue ya kwamba hiyo sio njia ya kujenga taifa, hiyo ndio njia ya kubomoa taifa letu la Kenya.
As you can see in that picture, Kindiki is frozen. He's thinking, we need to have dialogues, don't we? All right, let's go for a short break. When we come back, we take a look at what is happening in the dailies. All right, we start off with Daily Nation, and this is how it screams up. Big divide. The big divide. And you have sad pictures, you know, police officers basically trying to clear the road where tires had been set alight. And there's a map of Kenya showing the counties that participated in the protests. You have Nairobi, Kiambu, Kisii, Nakuru, Embu, Kajiado, Nyeri, Narok, Laikipia, Murang'a, Meru, Machakos, Kirinyaga, Uasin Gishu, Kakamega County, Makueni, and Nyandarua. 17 counties participated in the protests. And it says there's a drop in affected counties, business as usual for Kenyans in many parts of the country, but Metropolitan and Mount Kenya counties hit hardest by the protests. Shutdown in Nairobi as deadly protests rock estates and environs. You see, when you shut down Nairobi, you basically bring the economy of the country down. That's just how bad it is when the capital city is shut down, because yesterday basically nothing could happen within the city. And most people have their business operations within the city. Nairobi controls the economy of the country. So when Nairobi is ground to a halt, you can be very sure that the economic effect it has on the country is humongous. Then 11 people killed and at least 29 injured. Now, you need to see death. 11 people are so many. These are young people. I think the youngest I heard yesterday, unless new data comes out today, is a 14-year-old. These are lives that are being moved from the realm of physical life to spiritual life. The world of men to the world of spirits. The world of time to eternity. And it's so final. That's the thing that, for me, when I see this, it hits me different because, let me say, I'm spiritually conscious. So I look at it from the fact that Was this person ready to meet Christ? They've gone, yes. Were they ready to meet God? I don't know. So they've moved from this realm to the other realm. And that's a major concern. So it's 11 lives, true. In some cases, they're saying that there could be even 12. They've gone into the world of the spirits. Were they prepared for that world? And then you have protesters commandeering a trailer at free area along the Nakuru-Nairobi highway, which is madness. Police blockades turn Nairobi into a ghost town, and then protests move into the estates. Protesters play football at Thika Road at Roysambu in Nairobi. Protesters barricade Old Namanga Road with stones during the Sabasaba. And then page 7, 6 and 7 now, you have pictures of the protesters. Some of them, a man armed with a knife during the Sabasaba protests in Nairobi. Some of these guys are just gangs, thugs. Then you have the business community in Nairobi. They had hired individuals, young men, paid them to protect their businesses. In some cases, you have protesters sitting on a military vehicle in free area of Nakuru. You gotta love the military in one way when they're peaceful, that people can basically just jump on their vehicles and they're not going to shoot, they're not going to do anything, but trust you me, they're a completely different species when they take over power. You don't want that. Then Raila slams police as he calls for dialogue. And then the back page of the Nation, Kenya 15s fight for World Cup ticket. Then Coach Renato turns underdog Fluminense into FIFA Club World Cup challenges. Interesting. Brazilian soccer's ultimate showman, Renato Patalupi, has transformed the Club World Cup underdogs Fluminense from relegation battles to giant killers in 3 months. Hey, in 3 months. See, we get this guy for Harambee Stars. We've been struggling from the time Luanda Magere was 2 years old. These guys had transformed a club from relegation to a club fighting for World Cup club championship. In 3 months. 3 months. Well, this is, so he's fulfilled what he had told the people. You remember politics, people say, in 100 days, this is what I'll do. This guy said, in 100 days, this is what I'll do. In 3 months, he's been able to transform that club completely. That's interesting. That's interesting. And then the Standard newspaper talks about brute force. And it has a very interesting picture there because it has a picture of a police officer holding a firearm. This, I believe, is mostly a tear gas. Is one of those guns that they used to fire tear gas. And then you have a bullet there, but obviously this one doesn't come from this particular gun. And it says, once again, the government unleashed brute force on Kenyans exercising their democratic right to protest, sealing off the capital and major towns. The razor wire fences around state houses in Nairobi and Mombasa and the House of Parliament exposed a leadership so fearful of its own citizens that it would rather confine them to their homes than hear their grievances. The police, now seemingly President Ruto's last line of defense, killed at least 10 Kenyans, adding to the mounting toll of innocent lives lost. The crackdown comes just days after The Economist warned that Ruto is taking Kenya to a dangerous place. International newspapers are not saying very kind things about our country, are they? Then page 2, you have a picture of the horrible experiences people went through yesterday. The blockades, the empty roads, individuals arrested by police, injured people and bodies, individuals being taken to, wherever it is they're going. And then you have police and those guys who are basically hired to man businesses within the CBD. Then you have a picture of a police officer riding his horse, and one of his colleagues had fallen off from the horse as they were chasing after protesters in Nakuru City. These pictures, you gotta know, affect the way the world sees our country. I mean, if somebody was planning to come for a holiday in the country, then he sees this, immediately he stops planning for a holiday there. You know the way I was planning to go to Ukraine, and then Russia invaded, then I stopped going there, they lost my money. Protest fear grips state as silent streets speak loud. Police officers in a show of might along Thika Road yesterday, they had come out with their armored vehicles. Police clampdown cost Nairobi economy 10.4 billion. 10. I told you, you shut down the city of Nairobi and the cost implications are humongous. 10.4 billion. Hiyo ni alama ya kushangaa. And then businesses paralyzed as demos fever spreads in counties. Kisumu is very calm. Police accused of blocking healthcare workers and emergency services. The roadblocks that sealed Nairobi, we were told no one gets in. They executed that for sure. You know, I was coming in the morning and you couldn't go past GM, General Motors. You get to General Motors and you're forced, to either disembark from your vehicle or public service vehicle and find alternative means to the CBD. As in, it was, excuse me, majority of people just turned and went back home. And I think that was a wise thing. Travelers from Western Kenya ran into dead end. Hakuna kuenda nyumbani bana. Calls for fresh protests flood online after Sabasaba demos. Social media platforms were yesterday flooded with calls for more protests today as Kenyans marked Sabasaba with demonstrations demanding accountability from leaders. Hashtags including hashtag Tuesday is Tuesday, and then hashtag Occupy Until Victory, hashtag Sabasaba 2025 trended on X throughout the day, with many users declaring Tuesday an official public holiday and urging protesters to return to the streets. Then sad picture, you have pictures of a young man in Kitengela, a man injured during the clashes between protesters and police in Kitengela, Kajiado County. 10 people killed, scores injured as unrest spreads to counties. And then there's the story of how one-term chants stopped an entire SGR train. That happened on, I think it was on Saturday. These young people were going to, or Friday, these guys were going for a party in Mombasa, which you can call a beach party. And so these young people, there were, quite a number of them, and they just started shouting, one term, Ruto must go one term. And then on Saturday, I guess they went for their beach party. And these beach parties are normally just crazy things. So they did their beach parties on Saturday. Then they were planning to come back to Nairobi Sunday night. Hey, that train was cancelled. There was no moving out of Diani. Eh? That's how bad the situation was. Then Roko's threat fails to bite as most civil servants avoid offices. But for sure, why would you go to an office? There's nobody else coming, and then you're endangering your life. Then Raila says, this is my roadmap out of the mounting youth revolt crisis. ODM leader Anosho at Kamkunji as officer loses gun to goons. Wololo, the guys who stole an officer's gun. Let the people decide. That was that Matiba in the 1990s. And then we are the people in the 2025. I remember Raila Odinga went on Twitter and started saying he's the one who started this Saba thing, and people really tore into him and told him it was Matiba who started the Saba thing. But it doesn't matter who started it. Have we achieved what we started for? Yes, in some cases. We got to thank God for good things that are happening in our country. It's not all gloom and doom. We've achieved quite a lot. Some of the things that these young people are able to do in this country would never be done in other countries. Just try and do this in Uganda and see. You can show Museveni this. Just try and do this in Uganda and see what happens. Or even TZ. In Tanzania say that, we are strange human beings. If you try doing this in their country, you will disappear. If Tundu Lissu is being harassed the way he's being harassed, hey, there's no freedom, there's no democracy in that country. It's what Suluhu says that goes. So we have to thank God that we have opportunities to picket. Unfortunately, some people are not picketing peacefully, and at the same time, some police officers who've not been to the target practice are using human beings as target practice. So it's very interesting. Do we know? We'll be finding out shortly. I'm expecting Mureithi Mwito to be with us, and we are going to have a discussion on some of the things that happen in this country. So let's go for a short break, and then we'll have that conversation.